All right, welcome to the book club. And happy Halloween. I'm Dylan here with a guy that always wants to dress up as a human centipede for Halloween and insists on being the middle guy. Keith, what's up, buddy?
The middle's the best part. You know, you get a little taste of everything, if you know what I mean. Wait, what?
Oh, good God. Here at the Buddy Book Club, we're working out some bestsellers, and this week we'll be discussing Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark by Alvin Shwartz, and maybe more importantly, illustrated by Stephen Gammell. If you'd like to recommend a book for us to read or reach out to us in past episodes, you can visit our website, buddybookclub.com, or slide into our DMs on Twitter or Instagram or TikTok. Buddy Book Club Podcast. You can listen to us on iTunes and Spotify, so please download and subscribe. Keith, Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark brings back a lot of memories. For me personally, this was a suggestion by me. So I really don't know what your background is with this. Were you into Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark as a kid?
I don't know if I ever read these. I did you read this when you were a kid? Because this is one of my biggest hates is that, do you remember the short story about the woman that always wore a scarf and she wouldn't take it off?
Yeah, and then her head falls off.
Yeah, everyone's read that, which I thought was this, but it's not in this.
Yeah.
Where is that from?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And I also, when I reread this, was like, wait, there's a bunch of stories missing that I feel like I've read before. And so naturally, the wife goes online and buys the whole series from the Amazon, and I read through them because they're super quick to read. And there's a bunch in there. Like, all of them are in the rest of the ones that we didn't have.
Wait, was the scarf one in there?
I read Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark front to back, and then I kind of picked out stories from the next two that I remembered and wanted to reread. I think that one is in there, though, because I have a very vivid memory of that as well.
Why were we reading that as third graders, by the way, or second graders? What was the reason for that?
Yeah, I actually don't even know when it was that it hit. So for those that don't know, and if you don't, shame on you. Shame on you. Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark is a series of 3 books. They're horror stories for kids. What else do you need? And all of them come from folklore. So the 3 books we have is we got Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, which came out in 1981, More Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, which came out in 1984, and finally, More Tales to Chill Your Bones in 1991. Either way, Keith, let's get into some stock up, stock down. What do you got for stock up?
Stock up, being picky. I mean, we've discussed this ad nauseum or however you say that French Latin term. But I'm someone that's very picky. D-Man is someone that is not very picky and makes fun of me for it.
No, well, I'm picky my own stuff, but you're more picky about the food stuff.
Yeah, but let me say this line to you and tell me that this isn't something you've said multiple times. It looks nice and plump. I'll put it in the soup and we'll have it for supper. That's something you'd say. Whereas I'd question anything we're putting in there. If I'm having chicken noodle soup, I want chicken noodle soup, no vegetables. I want it straight up.
Yeah.
D-Man, you're the type of guy that'll throw anything in there just to try it out. Mm-hmm. So someone brings home a nice, big, plump
toe.
You're putting it in there. That's what you're doing. And that's one of the main stories. The first one of the main stories in this. You're putting it in there and you're not questioning it. I'm starting to question things, and that's why I'm not going to be haunted by some dude asking where his toe is at and not eating a toe for supper. So, stock up being picky.
For starters, I'd grab the pliers and take that toenail off because that doesn't need to be in there.
Christ.
It's not adding any flavor. No added.
Would you take off like the chicken skin?
No, of course not.
Yeah, well, I think they're made of the same thing.
No. Toes are made of keratin, which is what hair's made out of. I mean, nails are.
Yeah, but everything is made out of that. I went to the zoo and they were like, no, I'm serious. Tusks are made out of that?
Yeah. Rhinoceros tusks, they say, are I don't even know if this is true. Probably apocryphal. But it's just made out of the hair is the keratin is just pressed together in long strands, which creates.
So it'd be tasty, is what I'm saying.
But
it could be
skin
chicken skin.
Isn't made out of no. Chicken skin isn't made out of that. And also, if you think chicken skin and toenails taste similar, then come over next time and I'll prove you wrong.
How do we know? How do you know? Maybe you're too picky.
I did just clip my nails so I could go back in the backyard and collect them all.
You put a little salt on those, grill them up.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone's complaining. Anyways.
Maybe roast them like a little some popcorn or some corn nuts kind of thing.
Put it in there to add the flavor in. I mean, that's like when you eat the seafood stuff, you don't pull apart all the stuff you're not eating. Keep it in there, right?
What seafood stuff? What are you talking about?
Shrimp, right? You take the tails off eventually.
I mean, this is your best argument for this. If you're cooking crabs or lobsters, you cook it with that. You don't have to eat it, but you cook it with it.
Right, adds the flavor.
Yeah.
Exactly. All right, we're back.
The book does start off with a bang with the big toe. And question for you, did you do what I asked and go to the local library and get the old version of the books, or did you listen to it in the audiobook?
No, I did the best of both worlds.
Mm-hmm.
I listened to it on YouTube, and there was some actor that read them, and he was going all out.
Oh.
And he was yelling "Where is my toe?" And there's like music in the background. I was nervous. I was like, wait, what's going on here? Yeah, they went full out. And then I looked, because I needed to do some research because I forgot all the stories. I looked up and I found a PDF with all the drawings and everything in it. So
like the OG Stephen Gammell drawings.
Yeah, it's like a little weird looking kid that looks kind of like a dwarf, but with a toe sticking out.
Yeah. So that's, I mean, we're going to get into it probably a little bit more, but the illustrations is what I remember most about these books. Like, yes, I remember some of the stories, but the illustrations I remember the most. And I don't remember all of them naturally, but when I opened this book up the first time and I saw the big toe, I was like, oh my God, like this stuff is just so freaky. It's just a giant, gross looking toe with big, creepy toenail coming out of it. Like the guy just had never decided to cut his toenail. And then you have this like Hills Have Eyes type looking kid.
That is what it looks like. It looks like
I read these books as was intended by the author, which is I read them out loud to the wife in bed in the dark and scared the shit out of her right before bed. But I did like the jump scare ones at the beginning, because those are the ones that are actually scary in the sense they're pretty slow moving, where's my toe, and then all of a sudden it's like, you have it.
Yeah, you got to act it out.
Yeah. Oh, I was going all out.
You got to go all out.
My first stock up is nostalgia. When we're talking about scary stories in the dark, we got to talk about nostalgia. And as with most things you love when you're a kid, the stories themselves didn't age really well in terms of the writing. It felt like they were mostly written in a way that made me think that the 50 Shades author wrote them. Jim walked into a bar.
It's on some shade.
He said hello to his friend Sandy. Sandy said hello back. Sandy was thirsty and asked Jim if he wanted a drink. Jim said yes, like that kind of thing. But more importantly, when you go back and revisit things from your childhood, there's just this good feeling inside that they give you. It's inexplicable, but it makes you happy. And when I had the hard copy of all three of these in my hands, it took me back. Just looking at the cover reminded me of like library time or whatever it is in elementary school, when once a week during the day you go to the library, time away from my desk, which I was a kid who couldn't sit still kind of kid. So any time away from my desk was well enjoyed. And I just remember picking up these books that are just completely torn through because people had taken them out over and over and over again. Mm-hmm. And it just gives you that nostalgia feeling, which you can't explain. It's something that you can't explain. And even though reading some of these stories didn't hit home for me, I feel like, in the way they did then, the emotional aspect was there.
I remember that being like a chapter book that was like really deep and dark, and likely it was like 2 paragraphs, and it was like...
I guess that was the other thing with these two is I remember
they
them
felt a lot
being
longer.
Yeah, like I remember them being stories and they just ended after a page. It was like, oh, okay, well there you go. But do you remember any other ones besides that?
I don't know if I read these that much, or they just didn't stick with me.
Yeah. I remember the high beams one where the guy was flashing his high beams.
Well, that's an amazing one.
Yeah, you like that one?
But that's my favorite by far.
Oh, okay.
Every single one of the stories here kind of has a similar da-da-da-da-da-da, and then da-da, where that one is like, oh shit. It's almost like a riddle more than it is a scary story.
Yeah.
Basically, you could have made that same story, but instead of saying the ending, you say, but then the guy says, you shouldn't be arresting me. You picked the wrong man. And why is that? And you have to figure out answers to that, right?
Yeah.
It could have definitely been a riddle.
It could have been a riddle, yeah.
I love that. And it's the only one that was a little bit off kilter, or different than all these other ones, which are kind of all like... And then the person went from the grave and nobody believed him. But then they found the scar. It's just like, well, all these are kind of somewhat similar in that sense.
I guess you could also say the same thing in terms of make it a riddle with the girl who stood on the grave, which is another one I remember, which is about, they dare the girl to go out there, whatever the case. She's like, I'm not scared. I'll go out and be in the grave. And the kid's like, all right, take my knife and put it on the grave and then we'll know you were there. Mm-hmm. And then she died there, but it was because she had stabbed her dress, like her dressing gown or nightgown, whatever the case is, with the knife and thought she was being pulled into the grave when actually it was just the knife. She had accidentally done that. I like that one too. It's just weird. And I did remember as well the hook, which is, the person who escapes from the insane asylum, and the guy and the girl are necking up on Lookover Lane, whatever they call it. And honestly, tough look for gentlemen here, but because this guy is not.
Yeah, I got to stock down for this one.
Yeah, okay. Well, I guess we'll hold off to the hook. But from book 3, some of the ones I remembered was Sam's New Pet, which is when his parents bring home a Mexican sewer rat and tell him it's a dog.
Okay, naturally.
If you haven't read that one, it's also like absurd looking back at it. His parents went to like get him a sombrero, but they're like, no, it's too expensive. Oh, let's bring him this dog back. And it turns out it's a Mexican sewer rat with rabies. Like, parents, what's going on here? Like, you don't know that the dog is a rat? For me, the question was the vet was like, this is a Mexican sewer rat. It's like, couldn't it just be a Mexican rat? How do you know this thing lived in this sewer? Was it Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles? Is this Splinter? Like, what are you talking about? And then lastly, I do remember, and Caroline and I were both talking about this, we remember the red spot, which is, it's the girl who gets a spider bite on her face and it turns bigger and bigger and bigger, and then it pops. The spider had laid eggs in her face.
Oh, yeah, I feel like I've heard that one before.
Yeah. Let's get into your next stock up.
Chapter books, stock up.
Okay.
This is the type of book that you could brag to people. They're like, oh yeah, I finished that chapter book. And it's a short book, but every chapter is only like a couple paragraphs. You bang one of these out at night, and it feels like you're doing work, and you can kind of brag to people. You're like, oh yeah, I read that Scary Stories to Tell at Night. Like, a lot of people aren't allowed to have that, It's like watching a rated R movie, plus being able to say you do a chapter book. It's like killing two birds with one stone, really.
Yeah, it's like you're on the playground, and, you're with the girl you're flirting with in 2nd grade, and some kid's like, oh, Keith doesn't read well. And you're like, yeah, I don't read good. And then you're like, but I read Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. And they're like, oh, whoa, Keith.
Yeah.
A little hot and bothered. Like, you're allowed to read that? It's like, no, I snuck it and my mom didn't know. It's like, whoa, Keith. My God, show me your Trapper Keeper.
Wait, what? Pardon?
Everyone had Trapper Keepers back in the day.
I don't know what Trapper Keepers
Trapper Keepers, like the thing you zip up. It's like a folder that you zip up and you keep all your notes and pencils and stuff in.
I just called those 3-ring binders. I don't know.
No. It was like, I don't know. Just Google it, for Christ's sake.
Okay.
My next stock up is Taking One for the Team.
Okay.
Did you read The Horse? I assume you read the book because you read The Horse. Basically, 2 guys hanging out, farmers or something like that. One guy is like, I'm exhausted because this witch comes every night and turns me into a horse and then rides me all night.
Oh, right.
So, his buddies just steps up. He's like, I got you, fam. Let's switch beds. Something I personally would never do. If my friend tells me someone's abducting them in the night, my response would be like, sucks to be you. Lights out. I'm going to bed.
He rephrases it. It says like, oh, I'm exhausted all night. This person comes and rides me all night. You might be taking that offer up, are you not?
Buddy, I do not think you understand how important sleep is to me.
Sleep? Yeah, right.
Absolutely not. All night?
Good point.
No way.
Well, if you're on a cold streak.
Someone steps in for 15 seconds? Sure, I'm all in. Leave a glass of warm milk on the nightstand.
I said sleep with the person. Obviously, it's 15 seconds. What are you talking about? It's longer than that?
Well, in the story of the horse, it works out for these 2 guys because in the end, they come out with a new horse because they do a little trade with this witch's husband. But kind of like what you were alluding to, it seems like this folklore tale was really PG down for the target audience because, like you said, the witch, quote unquote, rides this guy all night, comes back sweaty the next morning, can't sleep. And then to get back at the witch, the other buddy literally nails her by, nailing horseshoes to her feet and her hands. But there's a little play with words there because he nails her. So yeah.
What are you getting at?
It's sex. I'm getting at sex.
Well, then doesn't he just con the other guy and gets a new horse? I didn't really get that. So isn't that guy screwed over?
Well, it all seems like it's not going to end well for anybody because he screws over the witch's husband, who presumably understands she's a witch. And once she gets those nails out of her hands and feet, like, she's going to be pretty pissed and go back and fuck those guys up. She has supernatural powers and they don't. So I would have ski-daddled if that was me. My next stock up is Reading on the John. I really do miss the days when we had to take physical reading material into the bathroom with us for our daily release. Everyone now has their bacteria covered phones that they can scroll whatever content comes up. It's you're not really deciding what content you go to. I feel like a lot of times you're just kind of taking whatever the internet gives you when you're on your phone. Like, you're not making a conscious decision usually. Like, I'm going to go and read this. Unless you might be. I don't know. But I feel like most people, including myself.
Sometimes I'll save articles or things like that to read. But other than that, it's usually just aimless scrolling. I agree.
Like, I used to enjoy Monday Morning Quarterback, Sports Illustrated. Mm-hmm. That would come out every Monday morning. So the Monday morning bowel movement was quite nice for me, but not anymore. But way back when, you had to make a conscious decision about how you were going to spend the next 10 minutes or so, or you'd be stuck reading the back of an Herbal Essence bottle. So I personally have keen memories of doing the like, oh my God, I'm going to poop my pants dance in front of my bookcase, trying to find a piece of reading material that was going to fit my needs for that particular bowel movement. An additional question for you: what did you read as a kid on the toilet?
This is a really interesting and good question, because I never understood why people read when I was younger on the toilet, because I would get in there and it'd be like a minute and a half.
Whoa.
Yeah, it was scheduled. I would every single day, right when I got home, my body would immediately know. And I'd RG, because I wouldn't ever RG outside of my house, obviously, or at school, never.
Yeah, no, same.
I would get off the bus, and right away I was like, oh my God, I have to shit. Instantly. And I'd go in, and I remember I'd just rub my eyes, and I'd think about what I want to do, and I'd be off. And that was it. That was like a minute and a half. Now I completely understand why people have magazines and things like that back in the day. I always tried to read there, and I was like, well, what's the point of sitting here? So.
Yeah, you're like, scary. Okay, I'm done. Like, didn't even get through the title.
That's the one thing you like when you're a kid, you just don't realize what it's going to be like later.
Yeah. Well, I was the opposite, and still am. Thankfully, this hasn't left me.
Oh, you like it? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, a famous quote in my own house is my mom used to always knock on the door and say, "Did you fall in?" Because I would sit there for as long as possible reading. That was the thing, and it wasn't like, oh, I'm reading Tolstoy or something. I was the big comic kind of person, collections or whatever, like Calvin and Hobbes or Foxtrot or something like that. The stories are one page, but you can just kind of keep going, and it doesn't really matter where you pick up or where you left off, and they're rereadable. So you'd store a couple of those in there, because worst case it'd be like, shoot, I'll do that. But even times that I'm reading like Harry Potter, it's like I can't put it down. So I'd go.
Harry Potter's a different story.
Like I go in the bathroom, and I had to go to the bathroom and just like crush it. I'm with you in that I was like the guy from Stifler, American Pie, when they always made fun of that kid for having to take a shit break and like go home. I was like, what's wrong with that? Like, he enjoys pooping in his own domicile. Yeah. Like, as one should do. I don't want to poop at a friend's house or at school or something like that. But if you ever did find yourself in that situation, go to a friend's house, like, oh my God, they better have something. Because it was always like the dad had the Wall Street Journal. It's like, I don't care what's happening there. And my related but unrelated stock up to my previous one is being scared shitless. And I personally just love being scared. We were kind of talking beforehand, I'm looking for a horror movie to watch tonight, and I just really enjoy that. And I think as a kid, I think as human beings, there's something there where we know we're safe. This isn't going to happen to me, but we like to read about it or watch about it. Horror movies, to me as a kid, was one of those things I wanted to enjoy, and it would scare the shit out of me when I did it. It was almost like a really hot pepper or something like that. But then immediately afterwards, I'm like, why did I do that? Why did I do that? I can't sleep. Like, I'm just thinking about all the terrible things that happened. Is this going to happen to me? So I don't know why that is, but nowadays I really do enjoy it. And I think a little bit of that trickles back to reading these as a kid.
I like that.
What do you got for Stock Down?
Negging, Stock Down.
Oh, can you explain to me what negging is?
You basically are talking down to someone in order to get their affection. I guess I got a good way to explain it? Yeah. Okay.
You try to make someone feel worthless, so then they're like, oh, he thinks I'm worthless. Let me show him how worthy I am.
Yeah, or wrong. Yeah. Anyway, so that's like a pickup game artist thing. But in the Hook one, you had already mentioned about Donald and Sarah. They're at the movies, and then they get reports that there's a killer on the loose with a hook on his hand from prison that's escaped. And they're like, we got to go back home, Sarah says. And Donald's like, oh, girls. Typical. I'm like, pardon? Like, what? I'm scared. I'm reading this. I'm not even here in the situation.
So you're telling me there is a crazy person that escaped from an asylum not far from here. We're alone in this car, and you're saying that she's being crazy? That is gaslighting. That is actually gaslighting.
Well, I don't like that term.
I know you don't, but that is.
But the thing is, it works. She invites him in to get cocoa, which, first of all, there's zero scenarios where you don't accept that.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. I was thinking the exact same thing.
The whole point of negging. What were you negging for? If you say no to that, then you're just an asshole, or you've just taken it too far. You don't know when to stop negging. It worked, but you're taking it too far.
Well, I was thinking about it as well. The goal here is to, presumably from this asshole's perspective, is to hook up with this girl. Okay, great. She's inviting you inside. That may happen. But if it doesn't happen, you get cocoa. Cocoa's delicious.
Right. So she could have been the person with the hook on her hand, and I would have gone inside and got the cocoa. I mean, that's the fact of the matter.
Yeah, does it have mini marshmallows?
Yeah, I was like, I'm in. Although I'm really anti-cocoa with water in it. Have you ever had, like, at a hotel lobby, they'll have cocoa, and it's just like, it just doesn't do it right. So maybe she's a notorious water person, and the water is like warm, like lukewarm. It's not even boiled. We need some more context there. Otherwise, the negging is way stocked down because this guy does not know how to do it.
Yeah, agreed. That's a good one. My stock down was the Dead Man's Brain Halloween game. Did you ever do like Halloween parties or anything like that as a kid?
We had like costume parties. I mean, and then you would go out. I think everyone would get together and be like, "Oh, here's everyone's wearing," and then people just go off and trick or treat. I don't remember doing any sort of games where you like take a wet tomato and put it through your hands.
Yeah.
I was like, wait, what?
Yeah, it's like take this corn cob and shove it up your ass. Like, I don't know. What does that have to do with anything?
He's like, yeah, just go out and buy a pound of liver. You're gonna cook that up. I'm like, wait, what? What is this game?
All of the part except for the raw liver. I was like, wait, what? Like. It's like also the guy goes to the butcher and the butcher's like, what can I get? He's like, 2 pounds of raw liver. It's like, okay, cool. What's going on? He's like, I'm having a bunch of kids over tonight. It's like, creepy. But I do remember this being, maybe it was just a thing that happened in like movies and TV shows at the time where they'd pass it around, like the peeled grapes would be like, and these are his eyeballs. Ooh. And the spaghetti being like, and these are worms that are eating the body. That just honestly, I don't think would do it for me. And maybe I'm just coming at this from a 36-year-old's perspective and not that of a child in like the dark in a room. But
did they do this at like Boy Scouts?
Yeah, I feel like that would probably, like after the raping.
I mean, I was gonna say there's like a 50% chance that they're like, now what's that feel like? And you're grabbing it.
Stop it.
I mean, that's what I'm saying is why it's scary.
Oh, that's a big wet noodle. Oh my God.
You're just in the raping. You're like, oh, that's too far.
That's true. That's true. I thought all that stuff, I thought it was for the movies. I didn't think anyone actually did that. And I think
anyone does
if
that.
I went to someone's house and they were doing that, I'd be like, loser. Like, what are we doing here? Like, let's go outside and get some candy. Like, that's what I'm here for. Plus, it's a mess. It's a big mess. And like, you'd smell this. Like, someone had spaghetti with tomato sauce. Like, I would be like, that's spaghetti and tomato sauce. I have a nose. It's not worms. All right.
Yeah.
What I would do if I had kids is I would actually do all of the things that I said it was. Like, invite all the kids over.
You kill someone.
Yeah. Straight murder
right,
someone. And I'd be like, oh, these are his brains. They'd be like, oh. And they'd be like, these are worms. They'd be like, it's spaghetti. And like, one kid would be like, I know this. It's spaghetti. I'd be like, turn the lights on, and there'd be a dead body in front of them. I'd be like, now you're scarred for life.
Yeah, got him.
Did you have any other stock downs?
Last one, and this is literally only for like 3 people. Stock down Aaron Kelly. I don't know if you remember the Aaron Kelly chapter.
Go on. Continue.
Okay. Aaron Kelly's bones. It's basically Aaron Kelly dies.
The guy was in pieces?
Yeah, so I have a bunch of issues with this one, but...
Just refresh my memory. He like falls down the chimney in pieces, right?
No. This is he dies, he then comes back to life, and his wife is like, trying to marry someone else. Yeah. And he's like, nah.
I'm chilling.
So I had a couple questions. First off, she's like, well, now I can't pay for the coffin because the life insurance was going to help pay for that, but now he's alive. This guy's either committing insurance fraud or he's dead. What is it? Which one is it? You know? So he either arrest him or he's dead. And she was like, she must have hated him. She must have killed him in the first place, right? Because this dude, she hates this guy.
Yeah, she was down to be rid of him.
He came back and she's like, what are you doing? Not like, oh my God, you're alive. Yeah. She's like, get the fuck out of here. You're killing my insurance money that I'm supposed to get. Secondly, the Undertaker, your only job when you build a coffin is to keep the person in the coffin. So she's like, oh, I can't pay for the coffin.
That's the job.
I'm like, no, you just failed at your only job of keeping him in there. So, you're paying me, actually, if anything. That unmitigated temerity for that guy to be like, I need the money now. It's like, bro, you didn't do your job.
Yeah.
Thirdly, Aaron Kelly, this is the one I said this only counts for 3 people. Aaron Kelly, when I went to school at Clemson, was a receiver there. He's actually a stud receiver. We're playing Boston College, and he dropped a game-winning catch in the end zone against Matt Ryan. We lose against Boston College in like the biggest rivalry game. One of the worst games I've ever seen. So the author knew who Aaron Kelly was. He's like, oh, he'll give you hope, right? So he does well the whole season. He comes back to life and then just torments you and fucking makes your life miserable after that. So Aaron Kelly was written about Aaron Kelly from Clemson. So
I like that angle.
Does that make sense?
Nice. Yeah.
Sock down, Aaron Kelly.
Yeah, I dig it. That's a good cut. I appreciate that one. Other ones, I didn't really have any other stock downs, and I feel like there's a ton of stories in here that we're just not going to talk about. And some of them are kind of dumb at the end. It's like, and then the wolf was never seen again. It's like, all right. Or like the alligator one.
And then they become alligators.
Yeah, then they became alligators. Huh? It's like, all right, people saw alligators again. Cool.
Yeah.
I'm glad alligators are repopulating.
It was kind of like you pick up a CD and there's like 15 tracks on it. 5 of them are awesome. 2 of them or 3 of them are listenable, and the other 6 or 7 are, you're like, yeah, I'm gonna skip these ones. Which I wish we had a greatest hits of the 3, and you just listen to all the greatest hits. Only,
that's a good call, actually. Yeah, someone should put that together. Why not us? Yeah, not every CD can be Linkin Park's Hybrid Theory. So I understand what you're saying. A lot of them are more like the Juvenile one with the back my ass up on it.
Lil Wayne's on that.
Yeah, he is. 16-year-old.
Drop it like it's hot. Drop it like it's hot.
Wobbly, 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 wobbly. So let's just jump right into love hate. Keith, what did you love about Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark?
I've honestly already burned all mine.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
Yeah, I've already talked about the High Beam story I'm loving. I like the audiobook. The audiobook actually also did what I think this book should have done is instead of saying, here are all the jump scare stories and here are all the others ones, they mix match.
Oh.
Like the High Beam story was like 3rd or something like that.
Oh, that's cool because especially the jump scare ones, like if they just all come at you fast. So I read The Toe first to the wife and she got scared. Obviously, when I jump scared, like, you have it. And then after that, she knew it was coming. But if I'd read a couple other ones where it wasn't coming.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, I like that. So one of the things I love just in general is I feel like there was like a mid-90s scary theme going on in society, whether it be with like toys. I didn't even know this, but like the Ouija board had been around for a long time, but it was redesigned as a children's toy in 1991. And, the commercials and whatnot is like, see if you can skip school tomorrow.
How is that going to be for not children? You're just going to get around at a party and be like, okay, everyone, gather around.
So, Keith, let me explain this to you. Before the internet and streaming services,
Go on.
There wasn't a lot to do. So, at a party in like high school or something like that, people would go into someone's basement and do Ouija stuff. Also, do you remember creepy crawlers? It was like an oven, and you'd put gel into these molds.
Oh, yeah.
And like
I never
make your
was
own
into
stuff.
that stuff.
Well, spooky for sure. And they also had Monster Face, which was like Mr. Potato Head, but it was like scary version. So those were like just some toys. I mean, we're talking about TV. Are You Afraid of the Dark? Then you got Tales from the Crypt. I mean, that was on TV, and that was definitely geared towards a younger audience. For books, we got Goosebumps. My Teacher is an Alien, and the hilariously named sequel, My Teacher Flunked the Planet. Obviously, R.L. Stine crushed it with Goosebumps. That was massive. Even like Animorphs was like kind of scary. I don't know what's going on today, at people that age, but I feel like it's not. I feel like it's Paw Patrol Middle School or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
So.
It's just TikTok. That's all it is.
Yeah? Is that what it is?
Yeah, I think so.
My only real hate is just mouth breathers in general, which according to the Urban Dictionary is quote unquote someone who is really dumb. I feel like they could have done a better job at that. But the book series, according to the American Library Association, this book series was the most challenged series of books from the 90s and then like on the top list for the 2000s. And basically when you're challenging it, it's like people that say it should be removed and has to go to like the PTA board or whatever the case
Yeah.
is. And I feel like the reason these books were banned was because of the illustrations. And we really have to do Stephen Gammell a solid by saying how good these illustrations are. Like, the illustrations are frightening.
The drawings look like, have you seen like AI stuff that's messed up where they get stuff wrong?
That's
That's
good
what it
one.
looks like. The faces are off by something. If you look at the horse one, it's like a horse with the eyeball that's off center, and you're like, what the
Yeah, and like
hell?
huge front portion, but like a tiny
Yeah.
back portion. And the babysitter who is like this woman's face on a child's body holding this baby
Very
that
weird.
has a giant head. It's
With tiny
yeah,
features.
but all the way that he does little strings of flesh and stuff hanging off of everything, it's wild. So I think a lot of people just saw the illustrations and, in classic I'm gonna get uproarious about something way, didn't read anything. They didn't read any of these stories, which in general, yeah, there's like talks about death and there is some gore in there, but a lot of them are more let your mind wander. They're not actually like telling you about murders that happen. It's just like, ooh, the what could have happened, or you have to read between the lines. So no one in power took the time to actually
I
like,
could see
read.
a parent being like, I don't want my kid coming to me every night being like, I'm scared because I read that one story. So I kind of get this from why they didn't want it read. I don't think anything should ever be banned. I think you should just say, I'm not letting them read this. That's
Yeah.
your choice, but whatever.
That's fair, but they did make a decision to re-release the books in 2011 and with new illustrations that are kid-friendly and
Hard pass.
honestly terrible. When I went to the library to get these books, because we were going to do the podcast, I asked the librarian, I said, hey, do you have these books? And she said, oh, they should be there. No, they weren't. I had to go to a different library, but you know, she kind of took a dig at me as I was leaving, because she was like, so when you go to the other library, you're going to have to go to the children's section to check it out. And I was like, yeah.
Is this the same person you corrected by saying maint to?
Yeah, that is the same person.
Oh, okay, wow.
Yeah. And she's like, the children's section. And she was like, do you know where that is? And then I thought it was a test, either testing me to see if I'm that stupid or to see if I'm that like a pedo or something like that. So
I think that's a lose-lose situation.
Yeah,
You're
exactly.
either too smart, you're like, of course I know where it is, or you're going to be like, no, and you're like, wow, this person needs help.
yeah. So, but I went and I got the book from the other library and they handed me the book. I was like, no, I'm sorry. This isn't the book. Like, I straight up said that. I was like, no,
Yeah.
this isn't, I don't think this is it. She's like, no, this is the newer version. I opened it up and I have them both because I ended up taking it out. It's terrible. Like, the illustrations are actually terrible. They look like something less than Goosebumps.
The scarf story they changed is like, then she took her scarf off and she said,
I haven't had a cool breeze on my neck in
Yeah,
years.
yeah,
Thank you. Luckily, it was just the illustrations, but without the illustrations, there's just not that much fun to it. So
lose it a little bit.
thankfully, the public rioted, and in 2017, the books were reissued with the original artwork. So we actually did something right with our public disturbances there. So I appreciated that. We could do a cast the movie, although I don't know how you would do it. But for research purposes, I did watch the Scary Stories movie that came out a couple years ago, and it was delightful. It was a really good scary movie. I was blown away. If you loved these books, they have like tons of references to different stories, even if they don't actually like involve them. You know, like they mention that kid's pet dog, but like that's actually a rat, but they don't even address that. But then all of kind of like the Herald I was talking about and some of the other scary ones are in the story, and they make it a very cohesive storyline. And
Really?
it was,
I was wondering how they did that. I feel like it would make more sense as like a Black Mirror type series.
Yeah, I agree. But the way they did it was really well done. It was basically, they kind of involved scary stories, like this ghost was kind of writing scary stories about some of the characters who then have to face some of the things that happened in these books. So yeah, I would definitely recommend it. I've seen a bunch. Like I said, I love scary movies. We've been watching a bunch in this time of year because that's what we like to do, light a fire and watch some of those. And this was one of the better ones, honestly. Like, even some of the recent ones we've seen, like, you know, Saw and stuff like that, are just like, whatever. this was fun. And it's definitely geared towards a younger audience, but it's still awesome. So yeah, I would recommend it for sure. And Keith, would you recommend Scary Stories though? That's the question.
Yeah, I think to the appropriate parties. I kind of wish there was hey, here are the top ones to read. Mm-hmm. Just because I think, especially now that there's so much content, it's tough to compare. But back in the day, these are kind of ingenious, right? These are pretty brilliant, especially for kids to open up their minds, like we've talked about with other kids' books. So I'm a fan. I'd recommend it.
Yeah, and if you get scared easily, kids out there, do what I did. Read this book on the John, because there's no place that you feel more comfortable than sitting on your toilet in broad daylight with the lights on. I think I didn't even get to my point earlier, but this is a great book for on the John because the stories are short. You know what I mean? You can kind of read a couple, read one.
Knock one out while you're knocking one out.
Yeah, exactly. Depends on what kind of BM you're having, and there's just lots of good stuff in here. So obviously they're iconic for me. I love them as a kid. I think they're great around this time of year. And just for the illustrations, you don't even have to be able to read. You could just go through the illustrations and be like, wow, this is some cool stuff. Who's the weirdo that thought about that?
Yeah, you should put this stuff on your walls in your house. People be like, what the hell?
I keep it in my cage in the basement. You know what I mean?
Oh, right. Yeah, okay. Just to scare the victims down there?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Guests. They're guests, Keith.
Oh, well, they're short-term guests. They turn into Aaron Kelly, then you don't worry about them.
All right, well, that was Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark and a little bit of more scary stories. But what do we got coming up next?
Yeah, The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. I think this one's a super popular one and 1.5 million votes on Goodreads. Whoa. It is a 4 rating. So I think there is some definitely people that really love it and people that don't love it as much. So it'll be interesting.
Cool. Well, as I said, happy Halloween to my favorite centipede, and we'll catch you soon for Midnight Library. Short book.
I like it. All right. Sounds good.
Bye now.